The first thing everyone asked as soon as we got back from San Francisco was always, how was? Since this is one of the most, if not the most popular attractions in San Francisco, you might be wondering if it's actually worth the $50 ticket or if it's overhyped. Well, you tell me. Our journey begins on Alcatraz Landing at Pier 33, where all tours to the island depart. We chose the second to last night tour, and we'll show you why later. After boarding the ferry named the Alcatraz Clipper, we took up positions on the upper deck. Chris promptly found a good spot on the port side to catch good views of the Golden Gate Bridge and the San Francisco skyline. I think it worked out pretty well. As Alcatraz grows larger in the distance, the late afternoon sunlight makes the island look even more majestic in the bay. We then start to get close enough to hear all the birds that live on the island, so we started to get pretty excited. Rounding the back of Alcatraz, it gives us a front row view of all the old derelict buildings and infrastructure that used to be alive on this once operational floating prison. It's a bit of a steep climb to get up to the entrance of the prison. It's about a quarter mile, and the elevation gain is equivalent to a 13-story building.
You're in jail now.
So wear your comfy shoes and be ready to hit your steps for the day. The tour itself is essentially self-guided. You can wander the island at your own leisure. We obviously went straight inside as fast as we could, but it was nice to be able to go in and out whenever you want. As we make our way into the cell block, you receive a headset for the audio tour that will guide you through the prison walls. Honestly, we're not usually a fan of the audio tour format, but this one was excellent. The stories from former inmates and added ambient jail noises really boosted that immersion factor. Entering the cell block, you're then greeted by the 3-level stack of individual cells. Everything you see here is virtually unchanged since the prison closed in 1963. Rounding a small corridor called the Cutoff, this leads us into probably one of the most famous prison hallways of all time, Broadway. You'll recognize this place from all the movies about Alcatraz, with the overhanging walkways towering above you. Some of the cells are even furnished just like they would have been when the prison was operational. Even the ones where a lucky few escaped, only to succumb to the frigid waters. Or did they? Making our way out a small door and down some stairs, we find the second most famous location on the island, the Yard. As a prisoner of Alcatraz, this would have been your only reprieve from your 9 by 7 foot cell. This privilege was always cold and always windy, and the outer walls here were so high you couldn't even see civilization that was only a mile away. After visiting a few other small ancillary spaces, we went outside through the administration building. Here we found stunning 360-degree views of the bay and all of the dense plant life growing all over the island. All while listening to a symphony of hundreds of egrets and seagulls. After enjoying the sunset, we made our way back inside. And at this point, most people had left on the second last ferry, leaving us mostly alone to explore more as the light faded to create an even more dark and creepy atmosphere. One of the most interesting and visually aesthetic areas of the main cell building was definitely D Block. Reserved for only the baddest of the baddies, perks of D Block accommodations came with things like worse cell conditions, fewer privileges, and harsher punishments. The worst of all being the 6 most terrible places you never want to end up on Alcatraz. Solitary confinement, also known as the Hole. These cells were super creepy. They were outfitted with nothing more than a sink and a toilet, except for the last one on the end. It didn't even have that. I'll let you use your imagination to figure that one out. The main doors could make the cells completely black, leaving the prisoners to hallucinate after a while due to sensory deprivation. Now, even darker in the cell block, we head back out to Broadway for the event that we were most excited for. A live demonstration of the cell doors opening and closing, making that quintessential. The demo was provided by one of the museum's amazing staff and made the whole experience fantastic. Now, I know you want to hear that a couple more times. This is where Chris asked if he could try closing the doors, and after a small pause for laughter, she politely said no. Obviously. Now, if you're planning to visit Alcatraz on your upcoming San Francisco trip, here's some tips and things to consider. We took the 6:30 p.m. tour, but left on the very last return ferry back to shore. So all in all, we had about 2.5 hours on the island, which I think was perfect. We did the full audio tour and then had time to explore everywhere by ourselves and catch the cell door demo before we left, including time to catch the sunset overlooking the bay and the San Francisco skyline. By this time, it was completely dark and awesome. Highly recommended. It gets very windy on the island, and with the sun going down, it also gets very chilly. So I would definitely bring much warmer clothes next time. I had a light sweater. I definitely could have used something a lot heavier, maybe even a puffer jacket. And buy your tickets well in advance, especially if you want to do the night tour, probably a few weeks ahead of time if you can. I left links to where you can buy tickets in the comments. Also, if you want to experience more spooky stuff on your trip, there's actually a really cool ghost hunting tour that you can also take in the city. And the last ferry ride back for the night is around 9:30 p.m. On the ferry ride back, they do serve alcoholic beverages for purchase if you want, as well as some other food and snacks for purchase. The hot dogs and pretzels were even half price, so I'm not sure if this happens every time or if it's because it's the last ferry, but good to know in case you get hungry. So to sum it up, while it's definitely one of the most touristy things you can do in San Francisco, I think it is 1,000 times worth it, at least once. So I hope you get to check out Alcatraz one day. And if you haven't yet, I also just published my full travel guide to things to do in San Francisco if you want to watch that for your upcoming trip. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.